Diana Taurasi has officially called it a career. Attention must be paid. Locked on Women's Basketball Emergency Edition starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm your host, Howard Megdal, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. Over 300,000 of you showed up in February alone. The month is not over yet. Of course, it is not just me. It is the incredible team across the board over at the Next, at thenexthoops.com. We have over 100 reported pieces every month on the past, present, and future of women's basketball. Just had Chelsea Leahy today with Odyssey Sims. Terrific podcast you really got to check out. And check out all that we're doing. Sign up, $9 a day, or $9. $9 a day would be a lot. $9 a month, $72 a year for over 100 reported pieces direct to your inbox. Sign up today at thenexthoops.com. A lot of those pieces over the time during the Next experience here at Locked On Women's Basketball and well over decade plus prior to that have been dedicated to Diana Taurasi, who made official what I had come to understand was a decision already made quite a few weeks ago, that she would, after an unparalleled career, and we can get into details, arguments about whether it was the best career, but there has not been one like it. Taurasi retiring following the 2024 season, where she was still an effective player, someone who clearly can still impact a game, going out on her own terms after more than 2 decades in the WNBA. So I want to talk today about the parallels between where the league was when she entered and where the league is now. I want to talk about what missed opportunities there were and may have been as well for both Diana Taurasi and the WNBA during her time. And we also have to capture her legacy, and it's really hard to do because there are so many elements to it. So let's get into it. But first, Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by DoorDash. And DoorDash has a deal right now. NBA fans, they swoosh, you save. Every time an NBA player, and again, I looked into this for you guys, the National Basketball Association is a place where men play professional basketball. It's like the WNBA, but for men. And apparently their season is happening right now. And some people in the NBA even score more than 50 points a game. They go full Michaela Blake's on you, right? Well, DoorDash gives you the opportunity to get 50% off an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight, anytime a player scores 50 or more in the game. You can get a game day feast, late night cravings, lunch on the go, and even fuel your watch party. As I understand it, the NBA goes on during March Madness for women's basketball. So an opportunity between games, or let's say during the few days during the week, NBA games happen apparently on the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, as you're waiting for the next couple of rounds of the NCAA tournament to start. And DoorDash helps you do it, right? So 50% off, one order, up to $10 off. Offer is valid from 9 a.m. Pacific time through 11:59 p.m. Pacific time after a 50-point performance in any game during the NBA season on orders placed at participating merchant locations. Maximum value is $10. Discount applies to subtotal only, not valid for the purchase of alcohol. Use the promo code NBA50 to redeem. Further terms and conditions may apply, and you must, this is important, have your Dash Pass account. I do. It pays for itself repeatedly. I can't really believe that Diana Taurasi is not going to be playing in the WNBA anymore. This is somebody who's been present for 75% of the league's seasons. And it's just this incredible thing. Just by virtue of the league's success, the league continuing to exist and prosper, no one will ever be able to do that again. It's just basic math. Her total of 10,646 points. It's hard to imagine anyone reaching it. Somebody who will need to be an elite scorer from day one in the league and play for over 2 decades in the league. Tina Charles is 3,000 points behind her. I think Tina's going to have a great year in Connecticut this year, but I don't think she's going to score 3,000 points in a single season, even with the expanded 44-game format this year. It just goes so far beyond it. And that's why what's part of so interesting to me about this is that in a lot of ways, Taurasi didn't reach the heights expected of her. And what do I mean by that? I don't mean on the floor. I had the privilege of watching Diana Taurasi play countless times. I can tell you that I always understood that I was in the presence of greatness, the way I do when I get to see Asia Wilson, Brianna Stewart, these types of legacy players, Sue Bird, Tamika Catchings, who to my mind is the greatest ever. Again, I'm here for that conversation. Taurasi was expected to be something more. So I'm going to read to you from a story that was in The New Yorker in March of 2004. Listen to this description. See how this sounds. When she decides to score, she does it so easily you wonder why she doesn't score more. Her signature shot is the three-pointer. She can shoot it from so far behind the line, it still surprises people. She's an exceptional scorer, but an even better passer, and her quick reads of the chaos on the court can be startling. Right. Sounds like a certain star of today. But the story in the New Yorker, and let's be clear, the New Yorker was not actively covering the WNBA at that time. This is many years before the great Louisa Thomas became a staffer at the New Yorker. It wasn't, can she be great? It was, can she save the WNBA, right? How often have we seen that frame? Well, it was asked about, in this case, Diana Taurasi. Jen Rosati was on the show this week. She made a joke. She talked about the fact that this was the best in so many different ways, attendance, television ratings, you name it, that we've seen for the WNBA since 2003. And she said, that was when I retired. And that was, obviously she was joking about this, but it was, and this is just the reality, a period that the WNBA saw ratings fall, attendance fall, teams folded, and the question again and again was being asked about the survival of the league. Diana Taurasi did everything she could on the court to build a legacy that will never be forgotten. Those who got to see her, those who saw her win championships, in 07, in 09, in 2014. Somebody who on the court, I just love this. She was an all WNBA first teamer in 2004 with Lisa Leslie, who's now 52. And she was an all WNBA second teamer in 2020 with Nafisa Collier, who's now 28. I mean, she just spans the history of this league. She played in the same league as Rebecca Lobo and Caitlin Clark. She played in the same league with every star pretty much you can name who's made an impact on this league. That wasn't enough by itself to turn the WNBA into the moment it has found itself in today with a massive media rights deal. That was never fair to ask of Diana Taurasi or of any player. This needed to be built at the league and player level, player association level, I should say. We're seeing it now. And that feels like a miss. Not Taurasi's fault. To figure out where the miss comes would take many other podcasts. But it wasn't just that Taurasi was a great player. She was about as remarkable as you can imagine as a quote. She didn't love to do media. She didn't. She didn't say yes to every opportunity in ways that would occasionally frustrate people who wanted her to be the face of the league. But man, every time she did, she was endlessly quotable. Diana Taurasi would say things in a way that would have driven news coverage had sports journalism paid the attention that it should have, endlessly. She was, in so many ways, the forerunner to Caitlin Clark as a player in the ways that the New Yorker accurately described. But she very much is a player who could have driven news cycles off the court as well had there been more people around to pay attention. And so I'm sad about that. I feel honored that I got the chance to hear her. I wish more people had. Just an incredible player, incredible person, competitor. You always wanted to be on her team, and you did not want to face her. So we're going to talk a little more about that right after this, capturing her legacy. I'm Howard Megdal. You're listening to a special emergency edition of Locked On Women's Basketball. Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by FanDuel. Now, when the game tips off, the action is just getting started. You can utilize FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. What's great about FanDuel is they don't just have women's basketball for live betting. FanDuel's live betting feature is now live for the NBA as well, because men should have the opportunity, just like women do, to play this game at an elite level. The app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, FanDuel customers who are new can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Howard Megdal here, back with Locked On Women's Basketball. Capturing Diana Taurasi's legacy is hard. If you go by career win shares, She has finished with 74.5 win shares. That is almost 19 behind Tamika Catchings. It is ahead of every other player who's ever played in the WNBA. Again, Diana Taurasi was an offensive player unlike any we've ever seen. Her range was unlimited. It was at UConn. It was throughout her time with the Phoenix Mercury. She won 3 championships, didn't win any after 2014. I don't fault her for that. I don't think the teams that were put around her made a lot of sense. I don't think she was maximized. Somebody who was endlessly capable of playing the two-guard position as well as anybody ever, and as talented a passer as I've seen, there are a lot of ways you can build a championship team around her. In a lot of ways, and this is also a limitation of, quite frankly, the limited player movement in the WNBA for the majority of Diana Taurasi's career. I think you lay this at the feet of Jim Pittman, who had Taurasi and Brittany Griner and did not win a championship with them after 2014. The mistakes made would be a series of podcasts. When you have that much talent, you should be able to finish the job. But Taurasi had her teams consistently in the playoffs. You put her in a position to win an elimination game, and the first 13 road elimination playoff games she played in, she won. Road elimination playoff games. What's harder to do than that? I saw a lot of them up close. She was the best manifestation I ever saw of Gino Auriemma's catchphrase, not about how to, but when to. When her team needed that basket, when she needed to get BG involved, when she needed to take something on. Look, when she needed to provide a hard foul or a technical, well over 100 technical fouls in her career. It's going to be hard for that record to be broken too. As fierce a competitor as you've ever seen, with the success to back it up. I spent 20 years talking to people around this league who never understood why you couldn't use Diana Taurasi as a villain in promotional materials. She loved it. No one would love that more than Diana Taurasi, and they never did. And so, yeah, through all of this, through a legacy that will be unmatched, however else people do it, whatever shape they do, this idea, Caitlin Clark will be the new Taurasi. No. Now, Caitlin Clark's going to be Caitlin Clark. And it's going to be different, and it's going to be amazing. But I would just take you back to 2015. And it was a moment in time where the league had reached its nadir when it came to television audience, attendance. And Diana Taurasi elected to sit out the 2015 season right after her team with Sandy Brondello and BG won the 2014 title, won 29-5, one of the best teams I ever saw. Try and picture what it would be like, what the conversation would be like if Caitlin Clark announced she was sitting out the 2025 WNBA season. And then multiply it by the fact that there's a new media rights deal. There are many stars now. There's a recognition that the league has sort of this wide range of support. There were a lot of stars back in 2015, but it was a media landscape where you basically only had, it was like one star at a time. That was the idea. Idiotic, ridiculous, sign of a lack of bandwidth on the media side, I mean, this is a league that was in year 3 of 3 to C with Elena Deladon and Brittany Griner and Skylar Diggins-Smith. But that was just how they thought of the league back then. It was, oh my God, Diana Taurasi sitting out. Will the league survive? But something else happened too when she did that. The great Kate Fagan wrote this piece in February of 2015. And she pointed out that with Taurasi not playing, it puts new pressure on the WNBA. And I say it like this. I'm just going to quote what Kate wrote. In the past decade, the league's top players have repeatedly made this emotional investment in the WNBA. But now that some overseas clubs are offering incentives to not play at all, WNBA players are facing a difficult question. How much money can they leave on the table? The truth is, many within the WNBA worry Taurasi's decision might spark a trend. They worry other stars will begin sitting out the WNBA season in exchange for a bonus from their overseas club team. What can the NBA do? You can easily read that paragraph from 2015 and see the 2020 collective bargaining agreement, the work that Kathy Engelbert put in to change the trajectory of where this league was going, to change the incentives. And there's so much more to do, and we're going to continue to cover the CBA here because it really matters. But how much did Diana Taurasi's stardom and decision help drive things in the direction that we find ourselves today? The league is doing this. The league wants to do this. The league had to do this. And we've talked about this in terms of social justice. The league has come to embrace social justice. I was there in 2016 when the league tried to fine Tina Charles for wearing her warm-up jersey backwards to protest gun violence. And they had to back down because they were going to lose the league. Players were not going along with it. So again, credit to the league for getting this right. Too many women's leagues have not gotten it right. The WBL does not exist anymore because at a business level, things were not done correctly. WBL has as much talent as any league there's ever been. So the league had to get it right, and in a lot of ways has gotten it right. And I would argue that Diana Taurasi helped do that. So how do you capture all of that legacy? No, she wasn't the savior of the WNBA because that's a ridiculous standard. Nobody, not even Caitlin Clark, should be asked to be the savior of a league. That's insane. That makes no sense. But nobody played like Diana Taurasi. Nobody did it for the length of time she did. Nobody's come close to scoring as many points. And she got them whenever she wanted them. She helped change the way this league is thought of in a variety of ways. She helped show what was possible in a variety of ways. I don't know what she'll do. She was on this podcast just a couple of months ago talking about it. She loves her family. She loves that time. She's amazing on air, but she doesn't need to be on air. She doesn't need the attention. But she'll certainly get it anytime she wants it for the rest of her life, because those of us who were able to bear witness, those of us who saw Diana Taurasi play, who got to cover her and speak to her, we will never forget it. It's the type of thing you tell your kids and your grandkids about. She's someone who, when I wasn't working to cover a game, I went out of my way to make sure when she was in town that my children saw her, that my wife saw her play. It was important. You're bearing witness to something that you never see again. And so for an all too brief moment that lasted several decades, all of us have. That's it for today's emergency podcast. I am Howard Megdal. We'll be back with you Tomorrow, I'll be joining you with multiple players from Unrivaled, Natasha Cloud, Shakira Austin. Real excited to share their stories with you as well. Until then, I am Howard Megdal, wishing all of you a wonderful Wednesday.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.